Tuesday Thoughts, SDH AM from the Kaiser Permanente Studios. John here, you there. Thanks for coming in as you always do. It's a stacked show, and it's a fun one on a bunch of different levels. Our friend Ali Howorth is going to join us in about 5 minutes or so. We're going to talk a little WAFCON. You're going to say, what is WAFCON? It is one of the more confounding tournaments that we have seen in quite some time on the women's side. And so Ali, who has a must subscribe to Substack when it comes to everything going on the African continent, drops by in between the quarterfinals and the semifinals to break it all down for us. Who's been a disappointment, who's been outstanding, who has gone up above and beyond when it comes to their own expectations. And I have a name in mind. We'll see if it agrees. Players that we need to keep an eye on, players that probably should be being looked at by the NWSL and other professional leagues, whether it's USL Super League, which is getting ready on their own. We'll talk to Kaylor Hodges about that tomorrow. So we'll talk WAFCON to start the show off. Then we go to Mercer University in Macon, catch up with their head women's coach, Tony Economopolous, and we find out what he learned from 25 as he gets ready for 26. Then Kacey White's going to join us, and we'll find out where Kacey be. And we were going to go over her Tour de Tejas, the two matches in Austin and what has gotten into Austin FC, plus what has gone on in Dallas and what it was like to wear her Letterman jacket if you follow her on social media, and what it was like to wear that Letterman jacket in about 9,000-degree weather. Morning, Alex. Morning, Abby. And anything else that's on her mind as she gets ready for what's going on in the college game. She is going to be the primary color commentator on ACC matches this year. So she's got to get ready for that now, too. So we'll catch up with KCD at 10. 10:30, we catch up with Santi Lopez, the head coach at El Farolito. It's part 2 of our conversation that we've had about what it's like to balance a family business. And what I mean by that is the chain of restaurants in the San Francisco area and the El Farolito just the pedigree that they've developed in the NPSL, and having to balance more than one side, chasing after championships, which they won 2 of this year. And so we find out what it's been like really to balance an amateur side that gets no real financial, benefit from what's going on. You move players on, you get nothing for that. So what's it like to balance a family business and everything that we've seen in El Farolito in the NPSL. So that's Santi Lopez, the head coach, and he'll join us coming up at 10:30. We caught up with him yesterday during his lunch break because the family is, after all, running a restaurant. So that's the rundown for the morning. It is El Farolito at 10:30, KCD at 10. At 9:30, bottom of the hour, it's Tony Economopolous from Mercer. And so that means that opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com, because we always start with the most important stories in the game. Right way to start your morning. Black Pitch Coffee, part of the SDH community, showing up at events all over Atlanta. Try their home blend made with beans from Brazil, Guatemala, heavy body, notes of walnut, semi-sweet chocolate, and a rich world-class finish. Opening kickoff powered by Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. And I will admit that having this guy as a part of our stable of experts has reinforced my viewing habits when it comes to everything that is fairly obscure from an American standpoint. So we bring in Ali Howorth. So, dude, congratulations on a heck of a WAFCON that you've got to cover so far, man. It's been fun.
Yeah, I think that there's no better way of putting it than just saying it's the greatest tournament we've ever seen from the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. We've seen unprecedented upsets. We've seen new teams rising to the top. We've seen old teams crumbling. We've seen teams qualifying for the World Cup, the lowest ranked team ever to qualify for the World Cup in Malawi. It's just been storyline after storyline. And, this came off the back of expanding the tournament. There's more NWSL players in the tournament than ever before, more, big name players from Europe. It's just growing. It's bigger and better, and we love it.
Yeah, and the fact that you went through all of that stuff and we've gotten here to the semifinals. Is Malawi the biggest story of the tournament, or is there something in a greater scale that's a greater story? Is Malawi the number one story here?
I think it's a coin flip between Malawi and Nigeria, because while Malawi's unprecedented kind of performance has been phenomenal. For every kind of yin, there's a yang, and that's Nigeria having their worst ever performance. Now, you might say worst ever performance, they got to the quarterfinals. Nigeria have never been knocked out in the quarterfinals in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. They've won it 10 times out of 13. And of those other 3 times, they made it to the semifinals. So this was equally huge. But then, yeah, you look on the flip side, Malawi qualifying for the World Cup. The last team that qualified for the World Cup that was the lowest ranked team ever was at the last Women's World Cup, 2023. Zambia qualified. I think they were 77th ranked in the world when they qualified. Malawi are 153rd. They have blown every kind of record out of the water. They have only participated in 5 Women's Africa Cup of Nations. And by participated, I don't mean made it to the tournament. I meant tried to qualify. So this is their debut. So there's been 13 Women's Africa Cup of Nations since the first in 1998. Malawi women's football, the national team didn't even play its first game until 2002 and have spent more time not existing since then than they have existing. And so for them to do this, to beat Nigeria, to beat Ghana, to make it to the semifinals, to qualify for the Women's World Cup, because in African qualifying, if you get to the semifinals of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations, you qualify for the World Cup. It doubles as that. It's a truly remarkable story, to be honest. It's incredible.
And for those that may not know, the hook here in this country, it is the Shawinga sisters. It is Temwa Shawinga, who is ridiculous, and I mean that in the most complimentary way possible, lighting up the NWSL, and her sister Tabitha. And it's been really cool to see that that family dynamic be a part of this. And I'm a guy that loves the underdog. Give me the underdog. No, I'm not going to sit there and go juice box on it, but give me an underdog. Give me a great story like this. And the Shawinga sisters, I guess, have been the personification of this run that these underdogs and these no names in quotation marks, these unexpected Final Four participants, that's like the personification of this whole thing.
Yeah, 100%. And look, it's just, for some of us who've been kind of following the Chawinga sisters for a long time now, back when they're, playing in Malawi, playing in the Kasafa Cup, which is like the Southern African tournament, going through to Europe, going to China, going back to Europe, or in Temwa's case, to Kansas City. We've been crying out to see these two play at this tournament. And as I was talking about, the country didn't even participate in qualifiers. At the last WAFCON, they didn't even try and qualify. They said, look, we don't have enough money. We can't pay our players. We can't fund this. So to finally see 2 superstars, because, I often talk about how in the women's game in Africa, a little bit of investment goes a long way, unlike the men's. The men's, it's so oversaturated. You got to put on a lot of money to get your value. In the women's, you see a country that is one of the poorest on the continent, that has some of the least infrastructure. They invest just a little bit, just enough to give these 2 players a chance. Because I think what's beautiful about their story is it's simultaneously the brilliance of those 2. But on top of that, it's the legacy of the Malawians who've been putting in the work. So I've got to take you back to the 1990s, when women's football didn't even exist in Malawi. And essentially in 1995, a woman's player called Maggie Chombo Sadiki, who's actually the assistant coach of the current team. She essentially had to start a team with her uncle, the first women's team in Malawi. They didn't even have enough women to make a whole team. So there was like 4 boys in the team, in the first all-women's team, because there weren't enough women. There weren't enough girls to play. And then that was in Blantyre, the southern city of Malawi. And in the Lilongwe, the capital, a couple years later, a guy called David Dube started his own team called Didi Sunshine. And it was his team that pulled Temwa and Tabitha from the north, because Temwa and Tabitha, you got to understand, they grew up in Rumpi, in the middle of nowhere, in a village in the north of Malawi, super far from any kind of economic centers, any cities. And so it's his work where he started this academy. He brought both of them to his team. Tabitha then goes to Sweden. Temwa then first goes to this other team that Maggie started down in Blantyre, and then into Sweden. And again, for the first one, this Swedish team didn't want to buy Tabitha. They said, we don't want to buy this Malawian player. So this guy, David Dube, said, fine, I'll pay the tickets. I'll pay for the flights. I'll pay for the accommodation. And if she's good enough and you sign her, you reimburse me. Of course, that's what ended up happening. A couple of years later, Tabitha tells her team in Sweden, hey, I've got this sister. She's even better than me. And they say, no, there's no way. There's no way. We don't trust you. And she said the same thing. She said, I'll pay for her flights. I'll pay for her accommodation. I'll pay for everything. If you sign her, you reimburse me. And that's what happened. And now these 2 are being superstars, and they're going to be superstars next year at the World Cup.
No doubt. It's great to catch up with our friend Ali Howorth here and find out what's going on in WAFCON, Women's Africa Cup of Nations. If I had told you before the tournament started that this Final Four would be this Final Four, what would you have told me?
I would have told you you're crazy. I would have told you needed to lay off the drink or the smoke or whatever it is you're on, because this is completely unprecedented, right? You know, we've got Morocco, Cameroon, Algeria, and Malawi. Malawi, as we talked about, debutants. Algeria, they had not made it past the group stage until last tournament. So this is the first time. That was the first time they made it out of the group stage, got knocked out of the quarterfinals. The idea of them reaching the World Cup, reaching the semifinals, is again insane, because the amount of progress they've made in the last 3 years is just remarkable. And then Cameroon is an amazing redemption story, because they used to be the one team that competed with Nigeria. Nigeria, as I mentioned, 10 of 13 WAFCONs, completely dominated women's football on the continent. They had a huge head start ahead of all the other countries. Women's football in that country dates back to like the 1940s, 50s, 60s. They obviously were part of that first ever Women's World Cup, and they kind of benefited a huge amount from being there. Cameroon were the one team that competed with them. And by competed, I mean they were the ones that always lost them in the final. That's what I mean by competed. But Cameroon fell off. They didn't even qualify for this tournament. And I would explain that is that this tournament expanded from 12 teams to 16 teams for the first time ever. But they expanded it after the qualifiers were already done. So they said, oh, wait, we need to bring in 4 teams. So they brought in the 4 highest ranked teams, which is Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Egypt, and I'm forgetting the last one. But Algeria were the ones who actually knocked Cameroon out of qualification. So Cameroon didn't even qualify for this tournament, and they're somehow in the semifinals. So the only one of those 4 teams that you would say, yes, I'm not surprised, they should be in the semifinal, is Morocco. They're the only ones. The other 3, it's ridiculous how they got here.
The established names that are not in the semifinals, and compared to those that are, is it because of, and I'm trying to, are the margins closing, or was this just events where those up and coming teams caught the established teams on a bad day? Are the margins closing on the continent?
I think it's both. Absolutely. For instance, Nigeria getting knocked out by Cameroon, that was probably Nigeria's actually best game. They played really well. They're probably a little hard done by. Cameroon scored an absolute wonder goal. Their goalkeeper had the best performance of any player at the tournament in a single game. So that's Nigeria getting they actually didn't deserve to lose that game. But absolutely, you would say Nigeria have, and this is for me a big theme of this tournament, is the chickens coming home to roost. Nigeria. I remember interviewing their previous head coach, Randy Waldrum, a guy from the U.S. who coached in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And he, the one who took them to the World Cup, who took them, beat host Australia, took them out of the group, almost beat England in that amazing penalty shootout when England got the better of Nigeria. And he said he's spoken a lot in the last couple of years about how we've stopped investing in women's football in Nigeria. And when he spoke to me, he said he hadn't been paid in 14 months.
Yeah,
which is just a good example. And he actually said, not to me, but to someone else in a different podcast, he said, look, if Nigeria goes on this path, there will come a day where they don't qualify for the World Cup. Now, I'm not sure if he thought that day would be the next World Cup, but that's come around. And suddenly Nigeria, they're not quite out. They've got to play a playoff, but they're in very, very murky water. And so I think it's the same with South Africa. I remember interviewing their head coach, Desiree Ellis, after they won the WAFCON for the first time in 2022. An amazing night, brilliant game. And she was saying, this has got to be the starting point. This has got to be the launch point. This has got to be where we start to really invest in women's football. We can catch the European teams. She firmly believed that. I firmly believe that. And sadly, the federation just has not put in the money. They've not given them the support. Women's football in South Africa has gone backwards in the last 3 or 4 years, despite a really good showing at the World Cup. They got out of the group stage for the first time ever in 2023. Whereas you look at Morocco, you look at Malawi. Malawi's investing money, not much because it's a poor country. They can't compete with South Africa and Nigeria in terms of the amount of money. And yet they're doing better because they are investing that money. And Morocco are the best example. Morocco put more money into their women's football as a proportion of their GDP more than any country in the world. They invest so much into their women's game, and they're seeing the benefits of it.
When you look at investment, and you mentioned how the higher ranked teams, and the higher, and I mean like number itself, not to the top, but I'm thinking like, the Malawi ranking, the higher number. When it comes to investment, I mean, do you have any idea what we're talking about? Because you have these poor nations that are investing, and you're seeing the results of that investment. But I mean, what kind of capital are we talking about here? Is it and how are they getting this capital if they're so poor?
We're really not talking much. So the players for the Malawi team, for their winning bonuses, they originally are set at 500,000 Malawi kwacha, and this tournament they've quadrupled that to 2 million. So they said we're going to pay you 2 million Malawi kwacha to if you win for every game you win. That's about $1,100.
Wow.
So it's not a lot of money in Malawian terms. It is because Malawi has it's a very poor country. Where they've gotten that capital is a lot of it has come from the bank, and a lot of credit from Malawi has to go to their president, a guy called Fleetwood Haya, who came into power in 2023 and said, "Look, we're going to start investing in women's football. We don't have a lot, but we're going to invest." And in 2023, slightly before he became president, they won the Kasafa Cup, which is like a tournament for countries from the southern part of Africa. They launched their first ever national league. So they didn't have a national league up until last year. They did not launch that. And a lot of that came off the back of getting investment from the Malawian Bank, the National Bank of Malawi, the NBM. So you're really not talking about a lot of money. I remember speaking to an owner of a club in Morocco, and he was saying it's in the realms of in a Moroccan terms, just a couple $1,000s to start a women's football team in Morocco. Now, Morocco is very unique because the state heavily subsidizes teams. In fact, in Morocco, the state actually pays every single club. They pay the wages of every single player and the coaching staff and a medical doctor. They give you like a baseline, kind of like a universal basic income. And they say any money you make on top, you can pay them more if you want. So the richer teams can pay more, but every single team makes, and I think it's about three. So if you're a player in Morocco, if you're in the top division, your baseline salary, no matter where you are, is $300 a month. That's slightly above minimum wage in Morocco. And so that means that if you're starting a women's club in Morocco with just a couple $1,000s, you're getting investment from the state where they're saying, we'll give you access to training pitches. We'll give you access to stadiums. Yes, it's not yours, it's the state's. Yeah. And so all you're doing is topping up whatever they're already paying in. So in Morocco, it's not that much because the state invests a lot, but it really varies from country to country. But when you kind of compare it to the amount of money you need to invest in the men's games in terms of developing elite academy infrastructure and all of this to compete with Europe, compete with South America, it's chump change. And I think where you've seen a lot of success is the countries that have put in and the institutions that have put in even a fraction of the work into their women's game as they have with the men's. So a good example is the Right to Dream Academy in Ghana. It is the kind of new elite, top of the line academy in Ghana and West Africa. Mohamed Kudus came through there, the kind of Tottenham star. Ernest Nuama, Caleb Virinci, who just signed for Coventry City, had an amazing World Cup with Ghana. But two of the superstars of this tournament are Ivorians, a girl called Grace Ruth Seri, their central midfielder, and Insira Ouedraogo, who up until their quarterfinal, when she actually got a controversial red card, she, for me, was the best player of this tournament. Better than Tamwa Chawinga, better than Tabitha Chawinga, better than everyone. They're both 18, and they both just moved to Denmark, where they're playing for FC Nordjylland, which is the club that Right to Dream owns. So Right to Dream have invested just a fraction of what they invest in the men's game into their women's game, and they're already producing stars in just a couple of years. Same with the Egyptian women's national team. The Right to Dream have an academy there. I think it's like 6 of the players in the Egyptian women's national team came through the Right to Dream. So it's really not a lot in terms of what you want to invest. And this is what I always say. I want to someday bump into Michelle Kang, the owner of Lyon and whatever, Washington Spirit, all the clubs she owns, and say, just give me a couple million and we'll be giving you Tabitha Chawingas throughout. Because when I speak to people from Malawi, that's all they say. They say, we've got so many players. We got so much talent. We got players. I remember speaking to one guy who's a club owner there, and he said, we've in my club alone, we've got 2 or 3 Tamwa and Tabitha Chawingas just waiting for a chance. And look, he might be exaggerating, but it goes to show that the talent is there. What we need is the investment, the pathways, the kind of ways for these players to go. And you got to remember, Tamwa and Tabitha was the first player in Malawi to ever leave the continent to play. No other player had ever gone to Europe or gone to China or gone to the US or gone anywhere. So, for Malawi, it is hopefully just the start of something special.
Yep, and I know a team that's based here in our headquarters city that starts in 2028 that might be looking down that road if they need to. And you doing all this advanced scouting, we do appreciate that because we want to coming out of the blocks. Tony Economopolous from Mercer coming up in about 5 minutes. And you realize, of course, that you opening all these doors means that after the final, you're going to have to come back and we're going to have to talk about more of this stuff. One of the things that has struck me disappointingly is attendance. Why is that?
So attendance has not been great at this tournament. I would say for The main reason is, one, fans don't travel on the continent of Africa. It's very, very rare to see fans traveling. In the men's game as well, it's very rare to see an AFCON where games that don't involve countries that are neighbors having big stadiums attendance. It's just not the reality. Now, the last two have been exceptions. The first being in Cote d'Ivoire. That's because Cote d'Ivoire is at the heart of Francophone Africa. There's a lot of visa-free travel between countries around it, and a lot of West African Francophone nations qualified for Cote d'Ivoire for that tournament. Morocco is kind of the opposite. It's Morocco's proximity to Europe. There's big diasporas. Suddenly, there are a lot of people can travel. With the women's game, I think there's that is that, you know, in the African football, it's so hard to travel. I mean, just a good example is South Africa. If you want to be a South African traveling to Morocco to support your team, you're paying close to $2,000.
Wow.
You're flying through Qatar or Turkey, or maybe both, or maybe even Turkey, Paris, Morocco. And so there's the kind of realities of the logistics of the African continent that come into play. I think the second big factor is Moroccans are a little tired of this competition. Look, Morocco has hosted this tournament. This is their third time hosting it. They hosted it in 2022. They hosted it in 2024. They're hosting it now in 2026. And I think a lot of Moroccans are kind of really tired. I'll take you back to 2022 when Morocco qualified for the semifinal. First time they'd ever qualified for the World Cup. First time they ever got out of the group stage. They're playing Nigeria. In the Moulay Abdallah Stadium, the old one that I was at, 53,000 is the capacity. I guarantee you there's about 70,000 fans in that stadium. I reckon another 20,000 just trying to get in. Same with the final. I had a friend who arrived 3 hours before kickoff. He missed the first half because he couldn't get in. A journalist, so he's going through the media entrance. He's not got a fan ticket. That's how popular it was. But I think there's just a lot of fatigue. They've hosted the men's AFCON. They've hosted other tournaments. They've seen their women's team get to the final twice. So I think there's just not as much interest in the tournament as a whole from Moroccans, which obviously is where you're going to pull the most of your fans. And actually, in Morocco, we tend to see the best fan bases coming from those who have diasporas living in Morocco. So Malawi, we've seen a few hundred, Malawians attending their games, and that's because Malawi and Morocco have an agreement where some Malawians can go there for higher education. Same with Senegal, same with Zambia, same with a few other countries. But I think that's the reality. I think it's just the realities of the African continent and the realities of a tournament that is kind of, the hosts are a bit tired of it. They don't really want it anymore, to be honest.
Semifinals, Malawi, Algeria, and Casablanca, after Morocco and Cameroon are in Rabat. Hit the promo for me because I know how to see what you're doing. Let everybody else know so they can see as well and get really smart when it comes to everything going on the African continent.
Yes, I host my own YouTube show called Ali's African Football. I just started it. So we're growing, and they're done a lot on the women's AFCON, doing stuff on all the games and telling stories, as well as on my Substack, where again I try to do a bit more in detail stuff. Same name, Ali's African Football. That's where you'll hear a lot of the same stuff I was just talking about the Malawian team, a bit more history. I'll give you a teaser about how the reason that Malawi women's football started was in large part thanks to a condom company in the 1990s, which is a bit of a fun twist. So if you want to read about that, head over to my Substack, Ali's African Football.
Wow. Okay, that's a tease. So after the final, will you come back and we'll keep talking about all this stuff and let folks in the NWSL and the USL Super League get to recruiting from everything that you're laying out, my friend?
Absolutely. And look, if they want to pay me a fee to do some agency work to get these players over to the US, I'm more than happy. Tap me up. I'm more than happy to help and be a scout for any NWSL or USL team.
Got it, my friend. It's always great to see you. Glad you had some time to yourself and recovered and got out of the sick bed because you got semifinals tomorrow. It's always great to see you and catch up.
Thanks so much.
There he goes, Ali Howorth. And the anything on the African continent, he knows what's going on. That's why with WAFCON going on and all the chaos, we figured we'd catch up with Ali and find out what's up there. But yes, the WAFCON, the other reason that we're kind of talking about it is because of that right there. That team right there coming in 28. Keep an eye on WAFCON, and you get to see some talent come down the pike. And when you have people talking to Ali about, there are 3 or 4 more Temwa and Tabitha Shawingas that are out there. We know what Temwa has done in Kansas City. So let's see what they can do when it comes to what's going on. Where is it? There it is. What's going on with NWSL Atlanta 2028. Just saying. Watch WAFCON. You can do that on the BNs. You can do that on Fanati, fntz.co/soccer down here. and you can get all the BNs. You can watch WAFCON. You can watch the Portuguese League, the French League, the Turkish League, and the Polish League all in one place. Everything on the African continent, AFCON, WAFCON, Champions League, CAF, all your under tournaments, all those kinds of things. You can watch that on all the BNs. You've got TVV out of Venezuela, CDO Plus out of Chile, Liga 1 Max Pro out of Peru. What am I missing? Kacey out of Argentina, which means you get Copa Argentina, Libertadores, and Sudamericana are getting gassed back up. You got that tonight. That's all on Fanatis at fntz.co/soccer down here. Later in the show, we will let you know what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it. Next up, we go from England to Macon and find out what's going on in Mercer. Catch up with Tony Economopolous, the head women's major domo at Mercer. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome to 2026.
Thank you, John. How you doing?
Trying to be as fast as you when it comes to getting ready for the season. I'm just trying to keep up with you, my man.
I appreciate that. It comes like a bullet out of a gun. It goes.
When you look back at 25, coming into 26, what were some of the lessons from last season that you brought with you to prep you for the 26 year?
Biggest thing from last year was the resiliency of this group. We started off with a roster of 24, and going to our first real game against Oklahoma State, we only had 14, and the team dug in really deep and just bought into the game plans, bought into each other, had each other's backs, and they're resilient, and they fought through a lot of obstacles they had to deal with over the 3 months. So I think that mindset has set in for the returners that, hey, we were that close. We can do it with the reinforcements we brought in this year. So I think their work ethic, their grit, and their mindset of, hey, we can overcome a lot of adversity if we did it last year with a half empty glass.
How much of a challenge is that for you and a coaching staff where you got to have a starting 11? You've only got 3 when you look off to your right shoulder. I imagine you're looking off to your right shoulder and you see the bench and there's 3 there. How much of a challenge is it for you and a staff to navigate the matches themselves, get ready for those, find out, okay, when it comes to, all right, I can practice them this hard, I've got to dial it back, this isn't what I'm normally doing. How much of a challenge was that for you and the staff last year out of the blocks?
It was extremely hard. We had one keeper at the time as well, so we had a bull rapper. Our GA got in goal for a lot of finishing activities and functional trainings. It was difficult because we had all these grandiose plans of 11v11, 9v9. We had to go down to 7v7, almost club stylish, and just limit things. Our sessions were about 70 minutes only. We just couldn't risk losing anybody else. But we made it intense in those 70 minutes. I mean, we'll try to do it as in certain functions of the game that were realistic. So we take a small microcosm of the game, dumb it down a little bit to minimize it, and show it to them. And the group did a good job. The most difficult part was the matches that were competitive, that you look over your shoulder, like you said. We had 1 or 2 subs, but you had to manage it because you still have 40 minutes on the clock. And in the college game, the first half, maybe you can't re-enter, or they've already come off one time in the second half. That was a difficult part. We told some kids, hey, you just got to find out 5 more minutes until half. You got to figure it out and get it done. And the willpower was great to see, but it was difficult. But this year, bringing a larger team, it's a breath of fresh air. So last year was difficult. It was rewarding as a coach and my staff, what we did to game plan and to manage the sessions to where typically like flying change is a big thing we do every week to teach transition and gritty moments and hard tackles and just bring up the level of practice. That last year we did it one time all season, John, because we just couldn't afford any kind of freak accident in the tackle. Whereas this year we've done it 3 or 4 times because we have a much larger roster and it keeps the competitiveness up at a higher level.
And one of the other things was with the bench being as short as it was, you came out of the blocks really strong after the learning experiences in Stillwater and at UAT, as the boss calls it here at the house. She calls it UAT. She is an Auburn alumna, and she can't mention those words in a grouping, so she always refers to them by other names. So you have learning experiences in Stillwater. You have a learning experience in Tuscaloosa. Then you get on a good run of form. And then the team in mid-September kind of bonked a little bit. And I imagine it was just because of, you're hitting that point of the season and it's like having to push through it. And you eventually do that in conference play and you have a good run of form into the conference toward the tail end of your schedule. What was it like to see them navigate that moment where it's like, there's a wall here, and they push through it and you get the results that you did in that final third of the season?
We expected a lull at some point.
Okay.
We weren't sure when, like any season. When you play 20 matches, there's going to be a dip at some point. And when it happened, as a coach, you're trying to get out of it as fast as you can. We were just limited with reinforcements, how to change it up. So it was a lot of video, a lot of mental trajectory, a lot of visualization. We worked with the starting group of, hey, listen, we're riding with you all until the end of the season. We got to find a way to get you to get out of this lull, this negative aspect of where we're at in the season right now, and get out of it. And our team, after they figured it out and realized, say, listen, I can't rely on Susie or Vanessa because they're not here. I just got to do it from within. And once they all got in and bought in on that concept, we started trending the right way again. We still didn't finish as high as I wanted to in conference. And we had a couple of games we just threw away with some points. Like any team, any season, any sport, you look back in your season and say, oh, this one game we should have drew or we should have won, that you dominated. But how we ended and going to the conference tournament, we saw the change in their eyes. You could look in their eyes and say, okay, this group is bought in. There's just a little bit of anger and determination, which we could work with instead of like scared and like, I don't want to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm. This season, I imagine, when are you leaving for Jackson, Mississippi?
We're leaving 30 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So I can't hold you long. So
you can. The bus away, John. We're good.
Okay. So I'll carry you for about another 15 to 17 years just to get you right out before the top of the hour. I don't want you to get in any trouble. And if you need a note, let me know.
I will.
When it comes to starting 3 games, you start your season 3 matches on the road. And it's Jackson State, it's West Georgia in Carrollton, and then you go to Orono, Maine. Yeah. How does something like that happen? It's because you sit there and you're going Mercer and Maine. That's not something that you would sit there and pair up. How does a non-conference schedule come together for you?
Yeah, so the main part first is we have a big list of all Division I women's coaches, and everyone goes on there looking for a match on this year, this date, home or away. I have a guarantee, whatever. So I had an open date. Maine had an opening. We had a game originally. I got dropped last January. So I go on the listserv. I put in there, I'm looking for a team. Probably not a P4. We just came off playing a couple of years of P4s. I don't mind playing one. We're hosting Georgia. So I was like, okay, one is good for the year, a top 15 team. So let's get somebody else. And when the coach from Maine reached out saying, listen, hey, we can help you out with some kind of guarantee to help offset the cost of flights. I said, okay, let me think about it. And then he says, listen, and I'll return to you next year. So I'm like, okay, without a guarantee. So I'm like, so you're going to help me come play you in nice 70-degree weather. It's 110 down here. And then you're going to return to me in Macon early August for opening game. Let's do this because for us, we have a better situation going to the cold than them coming to the heat. So it's going to be great for us to go there. It'll be difficult with the turf. We don't play on turf typically. So that'll be an interesting challenge for our team. We'll train on the football field a couple times. But then the Jackson State game, like West Georgia, we try to play West Georgia every year. It just depends how the schedule falls. And this year, losing that first game of the season through kind of a wrench. So we'll have 3 games on the road to start off. And our one exhibition was also on the road at College of Charleston last week. So the best thing about that is we have a young group that they're going to be well-trained on the road, how the process works, the bus, the hotels, all the small details. And you're not sleeping in your own bed. So when we do come home for a stretch of 3 massive games, hopefully they're excited to be home at Bet Stadium.
So how was recruiting for you coming into this year? You mentioned the youth that's there. There's the roster has its share of Southeastern U.S. players, and you and I both know what the Southeastern high school footprint is because you notice you look at your roster. Okay, there's some Bartram Trail here. There's some Georgia here. What's it like recruiting these days, and how has it changed, say, even over the last handful of years for you?
The biggest thing's been the portal, I'm sure every coach says. And we have a couple portal kids, but we don't live and die by the portal. If we happen to find a kid that can help our program immediately, we'll try to add that individual, but we're not big on that. I think the academic success and athletic success Mercer has had in the last 10 years has helped our brand to go out and we go to Texas or California, or Arizona, or New York. Kids now have heard of Mercer and they're excited to come, especially kids from like the Northeast. We have I think 4 or 5 New Yorkers, and we're talking to more because they love to come to the South. They're tired of the dreary cold and snow. So I think our success, I think our team culture and team chemistry has helped us. Parents talking well about Mercer when we go play other teams, how we carry ourselves. I think has helped us. But in general, Mercer's a very good product. The academic piece is tremendous. The athletic resources we have in place are tremendous. And being so close to the beach in the South and the climate, I think it helps a lot of kids say, hey, let's try it. And we play a good schedule, John. I mean, like I said, this year we're playing Georgia at home, who right now is 19th in the country. In 3 weeks' time could be top 10. So we always try to play a pretty tough schedule to make it exciting to kids to come in because they want to be at that level ultimately. So I think it helps sell the program.
Tony Economopolous, before he hops on the bus to head to Jackson, Mississippi, literally, I mean that literally. He's hanging out with us here this morning before he kicks off his 26th season. Internationally, though, because there's a sprinkle of international players, and I will count the Canadians as international players because you have to cross over a bridge and a border. How do you recruit internationally? How does that go these days?
Yeah, so some of the Canadians are kids who are close enough to the New York border that they'll drive the 2 hours into Buffalo area, Rochester, and play with a high-level ECNL club there. A couple we go to showcases in Canada because it's so close. We can do that. The Australian kid, we went through a handler. I know we lost a kid after she signed with us that we're trying to find a forward, and our handler had contacts in Australia. We signed his video. We liked what we saw, and it worked out for us that way. The Greek kids, we went to Serbia 3 years ago to watch the Greek U19 national team play against Serbia. We were watching one kid in particular, and we saw a different kid. And
how it goes.
So we got the one kid, we chased her down, and she was actually Greek American, so she was in New York. And then the other kid, we got her as well. So that's been great for us. And then Mariana got called up to the full national team back in the summertime in a game against Georgia, and hopefully she get called up again in October for the qualifiers. So just having contacts, having resources, having some success. Again, kind of like the transfer portal. We're not heavy at Mercer to get 10, 15 international kids. I think that can ruin the dynamic sometimes of a team. Now, it does work for the men's side more than the women's side. But the team chemistry is so important that I try not to have more than 2 or 3 kids from a certain country, just so they don't kind of have their own little own little team within a team.
Yeah, to have their own little clique. That's
correct.
So when the internationals come in, and I imagine it's a culture shock for them in some aspects because, I mean, look, first thing you've got to do is you got to take them over to fresh air and make sure that they have good barbecue and get them introduced to that. How do you introduce them to Middle Georgia and reduce that culture shock and make them feel at home?
Yeah, that's a big piece for internationals. Hey, how big is the city? What do you do? Because most of these kids, non-Canadians, but the Europeans and Australians, they're used to traveling themselves as teenagers in these big cities, and they're not in bubbles like we are here in the U.S. protecting our kids as much. They're just more well-versed in life. So I think the opportunity we give them, they know they want to extend their careers. They know they want to get a degree. They know the degree from a U.S. university will carry a lot of weight in their home countries. That's the first selling point. Then we tell them, if you want to play pro, this will prepare you because how we play in the U.S. is complete opposite how you play in Europe or Australia. It's all about physicality, speed of play, transition, not as much technical play per se as you do have the other countries. So when you go back home, not only going to be technically clean still, but you're going to be playing at a faster speed of play, faster rate, harder in tackles. And we tell them that's going to help get you better. Because when Mariana came in, great technically, but played so methodical, left to right. And we're like, we got to go. Can we get the ball in the final third in 3 passes or less? That when she went back this summer and played for the full side, she started and was at a different level because when she got it, she would drive and attack, and teams weren't ready for that. So we sell them on that. Then we sell on the team culture concept of, we're an hour from Atlanta. So you want anything massive, you're an hour away from a big concert, an airport, any shop, any store you want to go to in the world is right there. We also have the beach 2 hours away. So for some kids, depending where they're from, if you're a Belgium kid, you want to have opportunity to go to the beach. We're here. We're 2 hours, 2.5 hours from Savannah Beach, 3 hours from a Florida beach. So we try to sell that aspect. Or Disney World's 4.5 hours away, 5 hours. Nashville's 4.5 hours away. We sell the cities around Macon as well that excite them to do things. But then our team does a really good job of when kids do get here to show them the best of Macon. And I think Macon's a phenomenal downtown. I mean, for an international coming in, it's not as big as Athens, Greece, or London, England, but it's quaint, it's nice, it's clean. There's eateries, there's bars, anything you want. There's history here. So there's a lot of cool things we try to show them that make them excited. When they need something more, hey, drive up 75 for an hour and you get whatever you want.
What did you learn about yourself in the scrimmage against COC?
I was very delighted at the speed of play. When you played, because we started periodization for 2 weeks, then we had a week of preseason. We played each other, and we looked good in inter-squad scrimmages. But how we came out that first period against them, and we just attacked at speed, was great to see. We had a lot of new kids who stepped up, new transfers and freshmen who impressed us. That originally going to that game, John, I thought, okay, we're going to Maine. We'll take a travel roster. We can't fly 29 players and staff, so we're going to take 20 field players or 20 players total. Leaving that game, I was like, well, crap, we have a hard decision to make now. I thought it was going to be easy. Okay, these 18, 20 players. Now it's like, man, we have some hard discussions over Jackson State game, West Georgia, before 7 a.m. on Monday morning and change those flights.
That's a good thing to have, yeah?
Extremely good. I told our staff, listen, this is a great problem because last year we couldn't get players. We brought more staff last year to OSU than we had bodies sometimes because we had so many open seats from injuries, like kids couldn't travel. So this is a flip problem that we're like, maybe we cut some staff to bring more kids. But it's a breath of fresh air. I'm really happy with the team where we're at right now.
And it is going to be really cool for us to continue to see what's going on down there. When you look at conference this year in 26, what stands out, do you think?
Like always, Sanford is the top dog. I mean, Sanford Todd's done a great job there. He has the titles to show it and back him up. That team has a mindset. That program has a mindset that they built so much success that they're never fearful. They're down 3-0. They think they can win a match. And that's the biggest obstacle for all the other teams is when you're up 2-0 in Sanford, can you sustain that mindset? Don't get in a shell and let them take over. They're the top dog. So until somebody knocks them off consistently, that's who we're all chasing. I feel good that if we stay healthy, John, like right now, knock on wood, we are, and our one area, our goalkeepers, if they can do good and not cost us matches. Last year we dropped a couple games that our keepers were at fault for, and we're adults now, so we can say that. But I'm asking them to win us games, just don't cost us a match. If they do that and we're healthy, I think we can finish top 2 or 3 and get that bye in the first round of the playoffs. So that's our whole goal this year, if we can sustain what we're at right now.
And I know that's probably the bus driver, right? Is that the bus driver?
No. Well, that was saying the only way to get their food. We're good. We got 10 more minutes. If you need
I know.
No,
I just wanted to catch up with you on conference and everything. And like I said, you obviously know that it's an open door policy and that we'll be knocking on your door. And if there's anything that you want to vent your spleen on a Friday, it's like that may not have anything to do with college. It's like, man, I saw this and I'm just mad. It's like the whole thing on network. I'm as mad as, you know what? I'm not going to take it anymore. Anything that you want to get off your chest, think of it as almost like soccer therapy. So if there's any time that you ever just want to come in and knock on the door and go, dude, I've got to talk about something, you can. It is
awesome.
It is 1 day, 7 hours, and coming up on 10 minutes. Mercer season opener in Jackson, Mississippi against Jackson State. Then they go to West Georgia. Then they go to Orono, Maine. Then the home schedule starts. Tony, it's always great to see you, my friend. Just be safe, and we'll be keeping an eye on you. We'll be catching up with you soon, my friend.
John, I appreciate all you do for soccer. I appreciate everything you guys do. Have a great day, and go Bears.
There it goes. And the players are getting their food. Tony Economopolous, the women's head coach at Mercer, hanging out with us. Literally, he's supposed to be getting on a bus in 10 minutes to go to Jackson, Mississippi. They're starting their schedule. I can't thank Coach E enough. We're going to catch up with the men's side. That's going to be later Wednesday, and that's going to air on Thursday. So what we're going to be trying to do over the next little bit is catch up with as many college coaches here in the footprint as we can. And I did the math, and I think it's 38 schools, whether it's junior college or four-year institution, that have programs that we're going to be keeping an eye on in the state of Georgia. We're going to be keeping an eye on all of these programs. And we're going to try to grab as many of the coaches as we can during the season to get them to talk and find out what's going on. We're also going to have a Red Clay Soccer Report where if we can't catch up with them in the morning show, we'll catch up with them, we'll tape stuff, and we'll have Red Clay coming back, and that's going to be on a weekly basis plus the morning show and everything. But it was great to catch up with Coach E before he literally hops on a bus and they go to Jackson, Mississippi, and have a match tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock, and it should be on your favorite streaming device. Keep an eye out at Mercer Bears and see if Jackson State is going to have their own broadcast going forward. I know that a handful of us are going to be down in Mercer doing matches on the Plus, and I know that Jason is a part of this. I think Maddie at some point. And so Cast the Thousands rotating through. We'll be on the broadcast for Mercer this season, and we're going to keep an eye on them. As we get closer to the 20th and soccer at Samford, we're going to be catching up with Coach McAlpine probably more than once. You'll hear him on the morning show, and you'll probably hear him on Atlanta Soccer Tonight with Jason as we get closer to the 20th. And speaking of the 20th, Jason will be in Mercer for those matches, and we'll be in Athens for that match. And we're trying to catch up with the folks at James Madison as well. Do not be surprised if with a 7 o'clock kick in Athens on the 20th, we have some pre-programming here on the network leading up to that, because our friend Glenn Davis is on the call with Jill Lloyden on SEC Network, and Marion Crowder, our friend, is on the sidelines. So 2 of the 3 folks on the crew know us. That's going to be calling soccer at Samford with James Madison and UGA as they try to set a Division I soccer attendance record between the hedges. And so that's going to be on the 20th. That's next Thursday. So leading up to that, we're going to be covering that as much as we can. And like I said, don't be surprised if we have some pre-programming before the 7 o'clock airing on SEC Network, and just be ready for that coming up here next week. But it's great to start our college coverage with Coach E. We're going to catch up on the men's side later on in the week. It's going to air on the Thursday Power Hour, as we're going to be from the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground getting ready for the medium match. So here's the rundown for the rest of the week. Normal today, KCD is going to be joining us in about 10 minutes. We're going to talk about Leagues Cup, Copa Tejas, and her tour and all that. So we're going to catch up with her about Leagues Cup and anything else that's on her mind, and also her ACC-ness. She is going to be the top analyst for ACC soccer on the ESPN family of networks this year. So KCD, we'll catch up with her about a bunch of things. And we're going to start Leagues Cup, and we might talk a little in WSL, might talk a little Major League Soccer, maybe a little college, but most of it's going to be on Leagues Cup with KCD coming up in about less than 10 minutes. And then at 10:30, it's Santiago Lopez, the head coach at El Farolito in the NPSL, and what it's like to juggle an actual family business and an amateur club that is successful, and how you balance all that and the lessons and all of that stuff. So that's the remainder of the rundown today. Tomorrow is normal, and it's going to be hour 2 is going to be Dylan Butler, Kaylor Hodges. Dylan's going to go through Leagues Cup with us, and Kaylor's going to go through what's going on in USL. Super League starts, I think, this weekend, and so we'll get into that. We haven't had the chance to really even talk about Chicharito and Atletico Dallas, and we haven't had the chance to catch up with him about what's going on in Oakland. So a handful of home matches for the Roots. It's a mess. We'll try and catch up with Kaylor tonight. The idea is to catch up with him tonight so he can go back to school and be a school teacher, his normal job, before he puts on the Superman cape. And so tomorrow, hour 2 should be Dylan Butler and Kaylor Hodges. 8:30 Thursday morning will be a power hour. 8:30 to 9:30. We'll catch up with Mercer on the men's side. Friday will be normal, and it'll be catching up with all of our friends, Apple TV, and see if we can catch up with our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring. So that's the week. That's the week. Dell, what did Allie do? All right, so hang on. No, I don't want to leave Twitch. It's like, so open link in new tab. So what did Allie do this morning when he was off the air with us? Yes. Yeah. Alistair Howorth .substack.com and the OTW_podcast. So, and so let's see, ensuring preseason friendlies. So yes, that is where Ali is on his daily basis when it comes to his Substack. So yes, it is very, very cool. Del, to answer your question about Coach E, he started his career coaching at Western Illinois, went from Western Illinois as an assistant to Bowling Green. So he's had some leathernecking and some action. Then he went to Oklahoma State for a couple of years. He was an assistant there. Then he went to Georgia Southwestern down in Americus. And that is 4 hours, maybe three and a half from here, from HQ. And they were I think they're an NAIA program at the time. And so he's been the head coach at Mercer since 2012, and he's been in the SoCon. And the SoCon has its own brand of crazy when it comes to the men's and the women's game. And that's why I like to ask about expectations in a conference that's very, very traditionally tough. Maddie has called SoCon games. She called the conference tournament last year on the men's side. Coach E and what they're doing on the women's side, having to do with Samford and all the chaos that's there. The SoCon as a conference, very underrated when it comes to level of competition and such. So when you're in the SoCon, you got to be ready. And so in 4 minutes, apparently, that's when Mercer is going to be heading to Jackson State to start their season. So 3 on the road. And then what's going on? What's going on there? So when it comes to all of the stuff with Coach E, he's been established at Mercer for over a dozen years. I think this is his 13th season. And so he's been there at Mercer. They were over 500. I think there were 3 matches over 500 last year, 10-7-3, I think. But in the craziness that is the SoCon, then you've got to figure out, okay, how do you challenge yourself? And this year it's 3 on the road, Jackson State, West Georgia, Maine, before you come home and then you start your home schedule. So may not be as hot as it is now. But, yeah, so sounds like the main matchup was a no-brainer for Tony Economopolous, but it's always good to catch up with Coach E and find out what's going on down there at Mercer as they're getting ready to hop on a bus. And literally, 1 day, 7 hours, 9 minutes, and under 30 seconds. So like a 4:05 Eastern kick at Jackson State tomorrow afternoon. So we'll catch up, find out what's going on there. But like I said, we're going to be spending a lot of time in red clay on the colleges, and 38 colleges. We got a lot of room to talk. Some schools in the NAIA have new directors of soccer operations. They've got new coaches. We get to talk about recruiting, talk about the local presence and successes that have been going on in the southeastern footprint and how it's continued to grow over time. And so so red clay will be unleashed in short order. Morning Dell, morning Dawn Star, morning Lokeville, morning David, morning Abby, morning Alex. Trying to see if there's anybody else that is in one place or the other and find out. Okay, I think we're caught up, but it's glad to have all of you here this morning as we get you ready for anything and everything going on in and around the planet. So before Kacey D joins us, let me go ahead and let you know what's on the telly, and we can let you know what's going on. After Coach Lopez, we're going to go over picks of the week in the Clausura, and we're going to do that every Tuesday toward the end of the show. Shocking no one, I stank. But we'll find out about the rest of you, and I need to know how things are going in the Clausura. Okay, Sudamericana and Libertadores kick back in tonight on BN. 6 o'clock, Boca Juniors and Deportivo Recoleta is at 6. Libertadores, Deportes Tolima, Independiente del Valle is at 8:30. Leagues Cup tonight, Cincinnati and Atlas, that's at 8 o'clock on FS1. FS2, Can Champ is going on as well. Atletico Ottawa and Supra, that's at 7. BN and Espanol simulcasting. Leagues Cup, Tuda Ene and Unimas simulcasting that 8 o'clock matchup. 6 matches on Apple TV. We'll go through the juice boxes later on. 2 at 7:30, 7:40. Crew and Pumas, Charlotte and Pachuca. 8 o'clock, Cincinnati and Atlas. Since it's on FS1, it might be 8:15, 8:20. Minnesota United and Atlante with Piojo at 8:30. Be careful with the walkie-talkies. So 8:40 start. RSL and Juarez is at 9:40. Tigres Vancouver is at 10. ESPN Plus has Champions League matchups and qualifying. Sturm Graz, Fenerbahce, Lyon, and Sparta Prague, 2:30 and 3. Fox O&E has your Can Champ simulcast. 1 match in Next Pro, NYCFC 2. The Pigeons taking on Orlando City B at 7 o'clock. CONCACAF Central American Cup for you true sickos. 1 at 8, 2 at 10. And then Liga Profesional, that's top out of Argentina, Tijeras, and Lanús is at 8 o'clock tonight. So that's what to watch, where to watch it. How to watch it by our friends at Fanatis at fntz.co/soccer down here. All right, 10 o'clock. which means a couple different things on Tuesdays. It means that it's time for the hydration break, brought to us by our friends at local Vine Beer, Wine, and Liquor stores, 2 locations here. And feel free to hydrate as you wish. Let me bring Kacey D in so she can hydrate with us. And Johns Creek and Cumberland, they got big stores. So please hydrate away. Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Mm-hmm. Hydrating away. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yes, we believe in proper hydration with our guests and at all times. So first off, how was Texas?
It was fantastic. I loved it. Did you follow along? It was so fun.
I did. And I imagine that the Letterman jacket was worn for about 7 seconds, long enough just to take the picture and put the Letterman jacket back, considering it was about 120.
A little longer than that. And we actually were supposed to have an on-camera pregame hit. I had it with me for the pregame hit.
Oh.
And then about an hour and a half or so before, English didn't need a hit anymore. Spanish only needed a hit for La Previa. So didn't have it, but I do have it today.
There you go.
So I was like, I got to show you my big old
Class
of 2002, baby.
Yes.
All my basketball state patches. Because I played basketball and ran track.
I was going to say, when you played hoops, were you the point guard that had the monster 3, or what was your game?
Good question. I had the 3. I was really good defensively as well. Lots of steals for layups and little point guard assist distribution action. My mom was a college basketball player, so that was always my other sport. And so I did that, and then they convinced me to run track my last year. We didn't have soccer, so it made sense to do some more sports.
That's un-American not to have soccer.
I know. It was a really small private school back in the late 90s. We just didn't have it, and they still don't actually, which is a little bit crazy. But that was my jacket for Friday Night Lights. That's what I wore.
As it should have been. And so what did they have you do in track?
So mostly like the middle and long distance. Okay. I could do the 100 and 200 and things like that, but we had enough people and no one wanted to run long distance. So I did the 800, the 1600, and I did the 4x4. I anchored the 4x4. So, and then funny story, they asked me, I'd never done it, like a week before districts, can you do pole vault and high jump? And I was like, sure. Of course I can throw myself with a pole over, a bar.
Oh.
So I practiced for like a week just to get us points at district. And it wasn't the most inspiring height for pole vault that I ever did, but it was a fun little fact.
Wow. Pole vault, man, you're braver than I am. I'll tell you that right now.
It was fun.
KCD talking about nothing in soccer until now. So that's how we do an intro. Like 5 minutes, you get hydrated. We talk about track and everything else. You spent a lot of time in Austin in the last week. You got to see a lot of barbecue, hopefully, over at Terry Black's, like you and I are talking about. And what has gotten into Austin under Davey Arnaud?
I think we're the good luck charms, or maybe it's Davey Arnaud. What a great guy and tactical mind to talk to. I really enjoyed speaking with Davey this week. Austin needed a fresh start, I think. And okay, people thought they could get that after the World Cup break. Didn't really happen. They played Houston. They looked good for the first 20, 25 minutes and proceeded to lose 3-0 in defending transition goals. And then they played Colorado, and Davey even said they didn't play well. They didn't build well. They didn't look like themselves. It was not a good performance overall. So then Leagues Cup comes along, and they've looked fantastic. And I don't think, the teams that they've played aren't the top teams out of Liga MX. We know that, but they are going to have a real test coming up. But they need the confidence piece to score some goals, to feel fluid. So while the wins were good, it was more how they played and how confident they looked, how their movement was. It was really fun to watch.
They took care of business against Xolos and Puebla. And no, to your point, the rankings of those sides in Liga MX are not high, but nevertheless, you're still getting wins with an interim head coach and one of the DPs that you have been waiting. If you're a fan in Austin, you've been sitting there and you're looking at the money that they're dropping on Mercer Uzuni, and you're sitting there going, okay, when's my ROI? It's like you're a banker all of a sudden. Where's my return? Where's my return on investment? And last time out with Austin, you got to see, at least in a microcosm that folks are hoping, is the beginning of that return on investment with Mercer Uzuni.
100%. 3 goals in that game, the hat trick in 34 minutes, an assist in the first game on the first goal. And he's in really nice form the last 2 games. I love the way he played. He was all over the place. And it reminded me of players that always would say, well, I never get the ball. The team's not getting me the ball. Well, go get the ball then. And that's what he did. A free kick happened. I'm going to be stepping up here. A corner kick was drawn up for him. He delivered. But in the run of play, he was working hard. He was in really nice pockets, and also defensively did the work to dispossess that started a lot of the possessions that helped them go forward. So he had an all-around great game in both of those games.
And you mentioned with Davy Arnaud and defensively, what does Davy Arnaud want his Austin FC to do out there offensively and defensively? Stylistically, what do you see in them, and what does he want them to do?
Coordinated movement and the attack is really important. So movement off the ball, second and third player runs. Austin did really well in these 2 games with the change of point. So with Uzuni, to your point, playing really well, he was tucked more inside, and he's done that some, but he was having to play the 9 a little bit more with Vasquez being out. Now he's tucked into that left-sided 10 position, so he kind of pulls the strings. So in that attacking group, they want you to switch the point and be able to get in on the opposite side. That's something that they layered in really well on the attacking side. What was interesting defensively was they changed the way they played from the first game versus Tijuana to the second game versus Puebla. They changed completely different systems based on the opposition.
Uzuni in the game with the hat trick, and we'll go through as many of the goals as you want since I have them. Full 90, 30 of 32 passing, 94%, had the 3 shots on target. Magically, they all go into the back of the net. So his accuracy was at 100%. 2 defensive contributions, 47 touches, 3 touches inside the 18, successful dribble. Defensive contributions, he had 2. He had a tackle and a pick and 4 recoveries. He was 4 of 8 on ground duels and was fouled twice. And that was the day for Mercer Uzuni. The starting lineup I thought was interesting, and it was John Gallagher, who, with his time in Atlanta United, we've seen him play at the back, but he was one of those 3 at the back for Arnaud. It was Biro, Svatak, and Gallagher at the back, 2 in front of them, Sabovich and Torres. Then you had Rosales, Mercer Uzuni, Wolf, and Torres, and then you had Ramirez up top. How to see John Gallagher at the back? It basically was what it would be a 5-3-2, 3-5-2, however it would be. How did this look to you?
So in the previous game, it was a 5-2-3 with Gallagher as one of the wing backs. This was a defensive shift. So we still showed the system as a 3-2-4-1 in how they build with the ball. Yeah. It was actually a 4-4-2 defensively. Gallagher was an out-and-out outside back, and Joseph Rosales came all the way back as the left back. So it became 2 blocks of 4. This was a difference. It was to deal with an overload that happens off the left side for Puebla, and it completely shut it down. Gallagher, obviously, being one of the 3 center backs in the attack, wasn't getting forward. His percentage of responsibility was more defensive. But when they were in their defensive role, he was more in his natural position from a defensive standpoint, just 1 player less in the back.
All right, so I have all 3 Mercer Uzuni goals that are ready for your audio and your analysis. You can pick each one. We can go through each one, or were there ones that stood out over the others? Your call.
Let's go quick through each, just because honestly, the main point was how he scored in 3 different ways. So I think it's interesting to kind of take a look at that.
All right, so let's go through all 3. We'll play them kind of back to back to back here, and then we'll go with the analysis. Here is goal number 1, which happened early on as Kacey continues to hydrate, as she should.
Here in just the 4th minute, it'll be Facu Torres standing over it along with the left foot of Rosales, who was absolutely magnificent on Thursday night. And it will be Uzuni. He hit it. And he hit it so well. start here in the Texas capital. 1-0.
It's a dream start for Austin FC to come in the first 4 minutes of the game and to push how they're going to play in combination in the attack.
And that's goal number 1. So now, because we got the first one, we go to the second one. So here's the second goal, and you'll recognize one of the two voices. The other's Christian Miles, because it's Christian and KCD on Apple TV.
Here's Mesar Sabovic, the Swede, now picking out Wolf, who drifts between the lines. It's Ramirez, backheeled in. It is sexy football of the highest order. He's done it again. More magic from Mirto, and Austin absolutely dynamite. 2 goals in 8 minutes. It's the Verde and Black 2, Puebla 0.
This is exactly what coordinated movement does. When one run goes before the pass, and then you have a second runner, a third runner off the ball, it absolutely picks apart defenses. Watch the center backs in white. As Christian Ramirez makes this run behind, the center back.
That's number 2, so that means it's 2 down, 1 to go. Here's the Hattie.
Faces this year after his move over from Palmeiras. Whipped all the way across, and he overhit it, sits on the volley. Oh, it's spectacular! The hat trick hero, magical Mirto Uzuni. It's Austin 3, Puebla 0, lights out in Texas.
Mirto Uzuni has come to play tonight, and he's absolutely putting on a show. Everyone in this area runs to the near post space, and he is.
Yeah. All right, so 3 for 3. And the first goal, gorgeous set piece. And you've got to have real control to get it around the wall to make sure it goes into the near post.
I have to give Uzuni credit first on this, and you'll see why I'm saying that here in a bit, because I'll go to my second point. The way this bit outside the post and whipped back in, unreal technical execution from him. On top of that, the recognition of where the wall was set, that he was going to be able to do that. The wall was not set properly, and it was a little too inside the post. So most of the time when you set a wall, it's off the second person's like middle of their head plus a person. Because what that does is it covers bending outside the post and coming back in. On that side, because they were a little bit tucked inside, he didn't have to whip it as far outside the post and had the ability to bring it back. So not to take away from the technical execution, because it was still having to be whipped around. It still had to curve back in, and it was incredible execution. It wasn't exactly how it should be. When you have set pieces in the middle of the goal, it's hard to know where to set the wall off of. It was probably about that much difference that allowed the opening for him to be spectacular in that moment.
Now, I'm going to have to use that as a guidepost from now on when you're discussing how folks are going to be in a wall. Basically, you draw a line right down the center of a person's head. That's where the post is, and then they need to have someone off of their shoulder, right?
Between the ball and the post, right down the middle, yes. And some people slightly do it one way or the other, or they might have some different pieces, but it's how many numbers do you have in the wall, and that's usually how it's set, is a player and a half, because it protects against most people being able to whip it outside the wall. And if you take a look, it was just the one person on the outside was just even with the post, actually.
And if you go back, I think there is a ground level shot that shows that in the replay where they're off by that little, and then you see the opening that's there. It's
so hard, John, because I'm such a coach mind that like that's the first thing I want to address, but it's a spectacular finish at the same time. Like, you sometimes get away with that because we're talking about a difference of 2 or 3 inches. It's not a whole lot, but it is the margin. And I have to remember to give like the player credit as well.
But this is why I like to break this stuff down with you. And this is why you need to have your whiteboard. And this is why I personally, selfishly, we need to have you indoors for these game days so you can break this stuff down and discuss this, because that is a thing. A game is a game of inches. We always use that cliche. That's $1 in the jar for me. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you bring that up and you're looking at a fine margin of basically half a head and the ball and another person is the difference in it being 1-0 and then it maybe being wide of the near post in that situation. Now, this is why I like to have you here, because you could break this stuff down this way so folks can understand why something happened the way that it did.
No, I appreciate that. It's like basically if you're standing behind the ball, like when they have a forward set the wall, or like they give the camera look at the ball, just look at the post and see where the wall is set. What player is it off of? And it should be that second player down the middle.
Goal 2, what happened here other than a bit of filth in an assist?
Sabovic gets the ball, breaks the line. It was good combination play in the right channel. And then the darting run of Ramirez. I liked what Ramirez did. He played well and hold up, but his movement was good as well, where that ball could have been played inside, but it was played into his feet. A lot of times you'll see forwards just keep possession there and then recycle it back out. But because of what Azuni does, and he runs off of Ramirez, he has that little bit of flair to flick it on, and Azuni flies through the box. It was just a matter of beating his player to the box. But in their system, because he's tucked inside Mirto Azuni, he's a little closer to the center forward. So it was a really nice combination through the right side.
And the third one, to me, it seemed like it was one of the more difficult pieces of control that you could have. And if I'm remembering everything correctly, ball is over at the near post and left-hand side of the attack, inside left channel or left channel. And you see this rush of defenders. Basically, it seemed like the entire roster worked its way over to the near post to try to prevent a cross. And Uzuni's just kind of camped out, and no one's in his zip code. But to get the ball to him and to have the command to volley it the way that he did from, I guess, what, about 15?
Yeah, it was probably between 15 and 17 yards. It was actually off a corner kick service, so it wasn't even a cross. It was corner kick. So the organization of Puebla was not there. A guy already has 2 goals. What are we doing? Like, why is he the one player left open? I think I would roll the dice in a different way if I was them. But Facundo Torres just lofts it up, and you'll see, if you watch it, 3-4 players of Austin run towards the near post area. They're all being marked. And it just floats over the top of all of them. So I think in part of my goal call, I said this is off the training ground, is leave someone open, have everyone run and draw defenders, give that person as much space as possible. That being said, not everyone can connect with the ball like Azuni did. And he didn't go for power. He wanted good connection, and he wanted to guide it into a post. And that's exactly what he did.
Yep. So 3 for 3, Austin gets the win. And you look at the standings, and obviously this is the chaos, I think, that the League's Cup organizers in their hermetically sealed large conference room with the glass from floor to ceiling, and the doors that shut, and they have them all the monitors on. This is what they were hunting for. Half of the teams in Liga MX are out the door. They can't make it to the round of 8, and only 2 MLS teams have been eliminated going into match day 3, which is insane to me to think about.
It is. It's kind of staggering when you look at the 2 standings, the 2 tables of like the lack of elimination versus how many teams have been eliminated. To your point, the MLS has shown up and done extremely well and taking care of business, but it means there's all to play for in this 3rd game. So as good as Austin FC has played, and teams like an FC Dallas as well that I was on, like getting 2 wins, it could all be for nothing. So those teams really need to at least get a tie, but that might not even be enough. At this point, they might be having all 4 teams advance with 3 wins. It's a real possibility.
How many Liga MX sides did you get to call with Christian?
3 different sides. So I had Querétaro versus FC Dallas, Tijuana, and then Club Puebla.
What were your takeaways from Liga MX, from style of play and teams that you got to sample? What was it like to see Liga MX teams when you're normally seeing Major League Soccer club?
It was interesting because Querétaro actually had some really nice moments against FC Dallas at times. FC Dallas came out pretty flat in the first half, and so they really changed things. It's one of those halftime talks I could just imagine. It was like, what are we doing? Like, let's go. Like a little more motivational than anything, with maybe a few tweaks here and there.
Eric's throwing his hat at them and going.
Literally. He probably had an extra hat ready to go because he had to get rid of one. But yeah, so that changed. But definitely possession-oriented, and teams that like Tijuana love to defend and stay in games. So they, at times, would go to a back 6, and it would be like a 6 3-1 defensively at times. Sometimes it was a 5-back. Davy Arnaud was completely prepared for that, because when you look back at the Clausura in 2026, they had 8 draws, which was tied for the most. Only 2 teams had that many draws. What that tells me is they stay in games. So that was a completely different type of challenge for Austin, as opposed to Puebla, who tried to come out and play a little bit more. The thing that helped Austin in that game versus Tijuana was the fact that they scored early. So scoring in the first 15, 16 minutes, you automatically bring a team out. They have to come out a little bit. So it broke up that defensive structure. So possession, organized defensively, but no real bite in the attacking third from the 3 teams that I saw.
A back 6, that just seems like you're taking every bus in the garage or every train that you've seen. It's like literally you've gone to the Amtrak station and you're like, I need to rent you, and you, and you're just like, pfft. A back 6 seems like it's almost impossible to go up against.
It's so difficult because your width is completely covered. They have not 1 extra center back to cover, but 2 on each side. So it makes it incredibly hard to deal with. And what you have to do is try to catch them in transition, because it wasn't a team that just sat back the whole time. They did get numbers forward to transition, and they had players that could do that. The goal that Austin scored was in a bit of a transition moment. Azuni got it. He turned to his right and clips it over the far side to Rosales coming on, who was playing inverted off the right because he's left-footed. Mm-hmm. He snuck in behind before that 6th defender could get back, and it went right over the top, scored a great goal. So you have to be real creative in transition moments of how you break them down.
Yeah. What's the next match that you're calling?
I'm actually calling UNC Fairfield to kick off the season for my local UNC broadcast for ACC Digital. So that's supposed to be tomorrow. It might get moved to Thursday because of some travel weather things. So that'll be fun because I have UNC again next week for ESPNU. Mm-hmm. But I go to Colorado this weekend for Major League Soccer for regular season.
Okay, because this is where your schedule compresses, because you get to be, I think, one of the lead voices for the ACC coverage this year, which was really cool. We saw that press release come across our desk. And we know that there's going to be shades of blue in a lot of your on-camera, stuff. We know that's going to happen. How much studying have you done? And have you just kind of cursory looked at the ACC and what you're anticipating this year?
I landed at 5 p.m. last night. So I will say I haven't really dug into everything. I've done my boards. I've got my players ready for the game. I haven't spoke to the coaches, which I will be doing today. So not a lot as far as the matchup, but a lot as far as the ACC play. Speaking to a couple of the different coaches, I grabbed coffee with one of the local coaches, with Kieran Hall with Duke, and he brought me to the Duke campus, which I thought was a little rude, I wore some Carolina blue as I went to the Duke campus. It was fun.
There you go.
I've spoken to some of the coaches and calling a lot of games last year, understanding the turnover and things like that. But I'm excited for ACC play. There are so many good teams, so it's hard to predict, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and so our college coverage actually started earlier this morning. We dipped into the SoCon a little bit, and we're going to try and cover as many schools as we possibly can in our footprint, and we know that we have you as a reference point of the ACC. When you look back at the 25 season for the ACC, what sticks out in your head coming into 26?
An overarching thing that I think about is like a Florida State who ended up winning it. We know over the last decade or longer, they have been one of the perennial winners that has always been in and around the conversation. But what I liked about last year is about midway through the season, they weren't at the top of even the ACC. And Brian Pinsky told me, we have a decision to make, and it's now on the players. Who do we want to be? And what that reminds me of is that in the ACC, it's so competitive that someone who was struggling in the middle of the ACC season can win a national championship. That's what I love about the ACC. It's what I loved as a player. And we have a lot of other great conferences, but the ACC remains one of those conferences that you get tested week in and week out from an RPI perspective, and then you're prepared for the tournament. And so I think that's very exciting. Duke's going to have a chip on their shoulder a little bit, getting to the Final Four and feeling like, okay, they left something on the table. That'll be a lot of fun to watch as well.
Yep. ACC coming up around the corner. You've got your non-conference schedules that are going to be coming fast and furious, and you've got Colorado hosting Sporting Kansas City at Dick's Sporting Goods Park this weekend. So, do you have your calendar all orchestrated? How many different?
Oh my gosh, it's like a beautiful mind. I seriously think of Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover with like all the numbers above his head. That's me, but with like dates and like travel plans. I got my ESPN schedule for the fall about a week or two ago. Yes, that's exactly it. I got that through, however many months that is. And then MLS just sent me the rest of my schedule through decision day pretty much.
Wow.
So I have not booked all my travel. That is a Kacey thing for this week. But it has all been added to my calendar. And let's just say Owen's going to want a lot of extra treats when I'm home because this poor fella, he's not really bothered right now. He's just sitting down below me. But this poor fella is going to have me traveling a decent amount. But luckily, I have such a great community around me that loves Owen, so that helps.
Yes, and so he's going to look at you every time you come back in and sit there and go,
and ESPN keeps me here sometimes. I go to Duke, I go to State, I go to Carolina. So that does help a little bit.
Sir, Rowdy, hey, don't do that. He's doing boy dog things.
We'll do a mid-season check-in with Owen. We'll bring him up here and see how he's holding up.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like we need to do an Owen check-in. As always, it's great to see you. Glad you got to go home and catch up with folks and have a boatload of incredible barbecue. And I saw the pictures. I saw that you got to catch up with Jill Montgomery when you were in Austin as well.
Did you see my box that I had to stand on? I've never had to do that.
Absolutely.
I've never had to do that in a stadium.
The Apple box that is there, literally, figuratively, and literally as well. It's great to see you, my friend. Glad you made it back home safe. And you know that we'll be catching up with you every single Tuesday that your schedule will allow. Otherwise, we'll float and we'll catch up that way. Go enjoy your morning. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend. Great to see you.
Sounds good. Have a good morning. Bye.
There goes Kacey D. And where she be? She be busy as all you know what. She's doing Leagues Cup. She had FC Dallas, 2 matches in Austin, and now she's getting to fill out the schedule when it comes to Major League Soccer, ACC. So, yes, we are on the right path with all of our our red clay reports. So that was very, very cool. As always, so KCD comes in Tuesdays at 10 when she can, and now it is time to go back into the NPSL. And this is a really cool story. This is the second time that we got to catch up with Santiago Lopez. He's the head coach at El Farolito in the NPSL. And for those of you that don't know the story, they are one of their nicknames is the Burrito Boys. And it is because El Farolito is a restaurant chain, it is a chain of Mexican restaurants in the San Francisco area. I think there's 11 of them. And it is run by his family. And that is literally the day job of the family. And when they're not doing that, they are trying to, and while they're doing it, who am I kidding? While they're doing it, they're also running a sports franchise in the NPSL. And this past season, especially toward the end, a couple of weeks ago, they won the NPSL championship to go back-to-back in that competition. So the NPSL has a back-to-back champ in El Farolito. And for them, that wasn't the only thing that they were trying to do. You basically had a team in El Farolito who won the 2026 USASA National Amateur Cup and the NPSL National Championship in 26. Because of that, they have qualified for the 2027 Open Cup. And this is not the first time that they have qualified for Open Cup. And when they have in the past, they've been a real pain in the butt to professional teams. This is an amateur club in El Farolito. So you have a family that is running a restaurant chain in San Francisco, and they're running a soccer club, an amateur soccer club, on multiple fronts, and they've won 2 titles in 2026, both in the last month. So what I wanted to do was catch up with Coach Lopez and find out how you do it, considering it's an amateur club. And one of the questions that I do ask in this conversation is, okay, you're an amateur club. You have players come and play for you. And if they go and sign someplace else, you get no financial reward. You get no fee coming back your way. And so I got into the why and the how, and it was a real cool conversation on an amateur club that is doing tremendous work on a daily basis while juggling a family business and their passion, that is El Farolito and the NPSL. So here is our conversation that we had with Coach Lopez to kind of give you a bit of the why behind El Farolito and what they're doing to be the incredible success that they are. So here's the interview. I guess welcome to part 2 of my my questions and answers and all these kinds of things that I have in my head. But when we were talking last time, it was fascinating for me to find out about how difficult it is to balance a business, like a business, nothing to do with athletics, and try to run that and have the family run that, and then have the family continue to run what your dad started with the soccer club. How difficult is this, and how many different versions of you do you need to clone to make sure that things happen the way that they need to?
Oh, thanks for having me again, John. I'm very fortunate that we're a family that is very committed and motivated to continue to protect and share the story of my father, and especially what made him very happy was to work hard, maintain the restaurants, open more restaurants, and at the same time his hobby, having a good soccer team and competing. So we're all very authentic. We're very true. We're the same. The way that we treat the soccer players are the same as how we treat the cooks and the new person that is training 2 weeks, or the person that's been with us for 25 years. Everybody's the same. They're all very important, and we just keep it very simple. And it's just respect and showing examples and a lot of communication. So it's always a day-to-day battle. Always trying to solve different problems. They call us the firefighters because we're always turning off flames that we encounter. But yeah, it's a lot of hard work, but we're a team, and we're very focused, and we'll work together and with a lot of communication.
What do those of us who just know you from the soccer side, what do we need to know about the firefighting and the business aspect and all of this? What do we need to know about what we don't know about how difficult this is? Because it seems to me like this is you're literally. Is there such a thing as an average day?
Yeah, there is. Maybe Mondays, like right now, it's believe it or not, it's more of a relaxed day in a certain way, that you're not moving around so much in the locations. There's locations throughout the Bay Area, and there's a lot of traveling. But at the same time, you take advantage of that to think, plan, make phone calls. So we're all spread out in the locations. But one thing that a lot of people don't know is that they might see me go into the soccer training, the pitch or the stadium, and they might see me focused in the game. But deep inside, there's a lot of things going on through, I need to solve because a cook quit unexpectedly, or we need extra food for an order, and we need to, scramble to get certain people to work at a last minute. So we're always, I guess, in the mask, looking very calm, but just deep inside, there's a lot of things that we go through and day by day and week by week.
Because I would imagine that it takes a very special individual to be a part of your family, whether we're discussing the business side, the business, or the soccer side, because you're having folks and they need to present the best image of El Farolito that they can. It's not just, you can't just have a person who is one or the other. They have to know that they're representing both sides of this. You're looking for very special people from the absolute beginning.
Yeah, and then you definitely, you learn through, with mistakes. Unfortunately, we've had problems, or at least we've had mistakes in our product, or at least in certain locations, the way that customer service, or mistakes in the order, and you learn and you try to be patient with the people to give them the right tools to do things right. And same thing with soccer. You think it's a player that is going to keep his cool when they lose, and then unfortunately when you lose, you see the dark side of the person, and they present a face that doesn't really represent us, or at least what we intend to, right? So not everything is going to be perfect. Not always you're going to win, but you learn and you try to with experience and repetition, try to find the formula to make the less mistakes as possible.
So when you have that special person and they go and they leave, whether it's the restaurant or the soccer club, and they become successful in that new path, and then they come back and they sit there and say, hey, coach, I was able to do A, B, C, D, and E. And what's it like to see them come back as they are part of the family, and then be that extended family, and then come back after they've had their own successes away from El Farolito?
No, it's great. There's been a lot of cases where they don't return back, and that makes me very, very happy. We've had so many stories where people come to this country without speaking the language, and they work with us. They learn recipes. They learn the way that my father implemented a lot of things, and now they have 3 or 4 other restaurants, and they're entrepreneurs, and they're living their life, and maybe they learned something from here, or maybe they didn't. But for us, it's amazing to see that they started somewhere, and then maybe we, or at least the company or my father's recipes, helped them to succeed in life, and it's amazing to see that. And a lot of people say, oh, you should be careful with the recipes, you shouldn't share them. My dad's idea, our idea is like, you could keep them, you could do them, but the most important thing is the habits and the freshness that you do. And a lot of people don't have that discipline to do fresh things in restaurants. And the same thing with soccer is a lot of players, they didn't get a professional contract, or they couldn't play anymore, and they come here and they're training with us for 6 months. They get back into rhythm, and they go and they try out somewhere else, and they get a contract, and they don't come back here anymore. And I'm super happy that we were able to help them out in a certain way, not to teach them, because I believe that these players, at least the ones that I get, they already know how to play. It's mostly just getting them back into rhythm and getting into the intensity of a different style of football here in the country, and then they could go and implement it in another club.
And this is one of the things I think that may not necessarily compute with folks, is that when your roster, this is an amateur club that we're talking about here. So when they're gone, and there's no financial benefit coming back to you when they sign with a club, here, Czechoslovakia, wherever. It's like you're there as that gateway to a future, but there's no financial return. The emotional return and the depth that you get to have from that individual as a part of the family is there, but there's no financial benefit to this.
Correct. Yeah. We're always very straightforward with the player, very transparent. A lot of people, agents that I know, they tell me, you should try to make a contract with the player, represent them, get some percentage if they sign again. But our idea is not like that. We want to keep being for now that amateur team that provides a pathway for young players or experienced players to get back into the professional ranks. But we signed everybody as an amateur. Everybody's reinstated. Their professional status is reinstated into an amateur status. So there's no ties. There's nothing. So that's why for me, it's very important for the players that don't know us to come here and already know that there is something secure, that there's transparency, that we don't want anything in return. And one of the first step is the amateur reinstatement. Besides that, registrations, you're not allowed to sign a professional, so automatically you're reinstated, so you're free, and there's no strings attached. And for me, it's important that we at least begin that relationship with the player, that you're here as long as you want, and whenever you want to leave, you're free to go, and hopefully we could help you out. In exchange, you come and obey certain conditions of discipline and order and professionalism and respect to the group, respect to the coaching staff, and represent the club the best way as possible.
And the initial response. So when a player reaches out to the soccer side and you sit there and say, "No, we just want you to renounce your professional status for however long it is, you become an amateur. We don't get anything out of it other than the fact that you get back into playing shape. You learn, you're under our system and our style, and things may happen where we've had success in competitions and such." What's that initial reaction from those players? You mentioned how it is with agents, but how is it with these players when they're like, "Oh, really? That's what's going on here?" What's their initial response?
Well, all the players that we get have had professional experience, but maybe their last experience or professional game was about 2 to 5 years ago. So they're here in the country, they're playing somewhere else on a Sunday league, and they have that experience. You could tell by the way that they play and the way that we see them react to certain moments of the game. So we invite them, or they come out and try out, and we explain to them the situation, and the main principle, the main message is that we want to keep things very high intense and high performance. So the first step is to reinstate you, and then if there's something in the future that you could go out, if there's no strings attached, and hopefully they could be very, very motivated to maybe have this opportunity to play it at Open Cup, be seen by a scout or a professional team, and that's how we usually work. But right away, we're very, very transparent with that, and there's definitely no exchange for helping them out.
Is there a part of the menu there on the restaurant side that would be the personification of who El Farolito is as an entity, whether it's the soccer side? Is there one menu item that is so intrinsically you that it would describe what El Farolito is across the board?
That's a great question. It's a difficult one as well to respond, because every time I bump into people that have been coming here for many, many years, and they have a specific item. So if you would, maybe the non-soccer, I think it would be the super carne asada burrito, because it's just a traditional one. I know family. I know someone that their family would be working here. I'm not going to say names.
Yeah,
but it's an MLS referee, MLS pro ref. He told me an amazing story. He said that when he was a teenager, he would come in, help out his father, and he was a contractor. He would come out and help out his father, and every time they would come out to the city, his father would come to El Farolito and order the sandwich, the carne asada torta. And hearing that story from an MLS professional ref, it's incredible. So that I don't know which item, but in the soccer, in the games, we like to give out to the players that their favorite, at least for this past generation, the 3 to 4 years, they love just grilled chicken and steak with rice and beans on the side. They love that catering plates, and they just pick on their own. And I remember back in the day when my dad was still alive, the over 35 group, the over 35 years old group, they would love the super quesadillas, and that was a long time, a big group for over 10 to 15 years, and they would take out the quesadillas. So it just depends. We're very fortunate. It's been 40 years that the restaurant has been alive, and different generations. And just imagine how many people have been around here for 40 years in the club. So it varies.
You're making me hungry with all those mentions, man. When I ask you, what do you need? I mean, is there anything that you need to get to the next level athletically to make sure that you can continue being that force and being that influence there in the San Francisco area to be that national force? What do you need to continue to grow?
I don't think, at least for the adult category, I think we would be okay with the same formula system we've been working on. We don't have a lot of fields, and I've managed to create a certain way to train and adapt to the situation. We already know what times of the year we need to start working and to when do we plan to finish. But the real thing for me is to try to help out the soccer community here in San Francisco. There's a lot of players that don't make it to D1 or D2 because of grades, and they have a lot of talent. I think the next step for the club is to try to find more field space to work with, U17s, U20s, all the way to maybe all U15s. Give an extra space to the community to play, because there's a lot of players that can't make it to MLS Next or ECNL because of prices or maybe traveling distance. I know parents that would pay to play to have their kid in a MLS Next, but unfortunately because of traffic and gas prices here in the Bay Area, it takes them over an hour to get to training, and to be training 4 times a week plus the games, it's very, very difficult. So to have another space for families and kids to prepare themselves, and out of, I don't know, 100 players, maybe 5 could make it to the professional ranks. I think that's huge. So for me, it's having our own field or fields to have and invite more of these players that are right now, for example, in our team in the future. They know exactly what we look for. They already know that they have the DNA of El Farolito, what we want, the way that we want to work. They could probably share that to the young kids and continue to share the story of El Farolito, my dad, and help out the community to continue playing.
Does it seem like it's been 40 years?
For me, I've been here for 16, and I feel like it's been 50. But it does seem like it's a bit more than 40, because there's just so many people out here with old gear from El Farolito. There's random people that show up to me and they say that, I remember you when you were 5 years old, and I don't even know the person. And, so it's interesting what El Farolito has built, what it created, and it's all thanks to the beautiful game. There's nothing else to it. And then it's not only just the game, and then there's the food part of it. You find people from England randomly, messaging us like, "How can you ship us some burritos here?" And it's incredible. But it's all thanks to, I give credit to, and I'm very grateful to the city of San Francisco. At least my experience, maybe my dad didn't have it, but I grew up here. I lived in different parts of the city, in different communities in the city. And communities, I mean the soccer side, the art side, the different parts of the city. And it's such an incredible and artistic and creative space, regardless of the prices and maybe the transformations every 5-7 years. San Francisco is very, very unique, and there's so much, you get so much inspiration, and there's so many creative people that you just throw ideas, and groups come together and they align and they create so many things. And you see it even in sports or in whatever it is. Right now in Oakland, you see so many people popping up these random soccer fields, and here in San Francisco as well, there's new soccer fields as well, and basketball courts everywhere in East Oakland. And it just keeps growing, and I think there's so much space. It's very limited space, but there's still a lot of space available to create a lot of things.
How nimble have you had to be in growing both sides of this equation over the last 16 years?
I don't know. I think there's time for everything. You can't. I've been very fortunate to have the time to, let's imagine, like 4 hours here, 4 hours here, 4 hours there each day. So I kind of balance it out, and I've been very fortunate to experience a little bit of everything here in the city, in California, and then at the same time with my connections in South America, Latin America. So you got to stay busy. You have to keep moving because the opportunities just don't come. You have to go look for them. So I've been very fortunate to have a little bit of everything, and most importantly, ask questions and learn and look for things. And we have a lot of things in the internet, and you have to keep going and you have to keep moving because learning just doesn't come. You need to go and experience. You make mistakes, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and a lot. So, but I'm very fortunate that I could still have the opportunity, to try it out again next year, in case if we don't win a championship, and if we lose a game, we have a chance for another game, another week. So, it's about being confident and trying to learn and not be afraid to make a mistake. That's huge for me.
How long did it take you to understand that and to be confident enough to ask a question? Because there are a lot of us that will sit there and it's like, yeah, we got it. It's under control. And then it's not. How long did it take you to understand it's okay to ask questions? You're no less a businessman. You're no less an athlete or a coach or what have you. It's okay to ask questions.
It's all thanks to my father, because I had the confidence to ask him anything, anytime. So I grew up with that, and if it's, to me, it's a no-brainer. Like, if you don't know something, ask for it or look for it. So my dad gave me a lot of confidence and trying things out. Like, go for it, do it, but be very open to hear that you made a mistake, because a lot of people like to do things, or at least my kid. I'm taking an example. My kid, he loves to try things out, but when I tell him he makes a mistake, he gets mad or he says he's not wrong. So I think it's very important to have that open mind that, hey, try it, but be aware that you're going to make a mistake and be open to receive it. And I think it's huge. You always want to hear, at least for me, is advice and help. That's the way you avoid another year of experience, or at least avoid another year of experimenting things. It's better to know it right away, and I was very fortunate, extremely fortunate, that my father gave me that confidence to test things out and to not give up and look for another chance to improve.
So what's next on the soccer side? How much rest are you giving yourself before you get ramped back up?
I only had 1 week, which was actually no. We had a scrimmage with U18, the U18, the Earthquakes Academy.
Okay.
This past Saturday, we tied 2-2. It was a great game. We were losing 2-1. In the 85th minute, we tied 2-2 against an extremely talented group of U18s, the Earthquakes over there. Gerson Perez, the son of Hugo Perez. Maybe some might know, might not know. Hugo Perez was in the El Salvadorian national team coach. He's worked here in the U.S. as well. His son is now has taken over the U18 Earthquakes, and Lucci's a director over there. They invited us to do a practice game for their preseason. It was a fantastic game, and seeing 16-year-olds compete against us, and they're just fantastic team, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them this season. So this was this past Saturday. Today's my rest. Tomorrow I begin again with MLS Next Homegrown division with the Town FC. I'm going to be taking over the 2011s, which is the U16 category there for the fall, and try to help those kids out, help the club as much as I can. There's a fantastic coaching staff over there. I'm going to be doing that till December, and then hopefully have a nice winter break, and we start with El Farolito in the beginning of January.
Fantastic. I can't thank you enough to take a little bit of time on your off day to catch up with us, because off air, we start talking and it comes up with other ideas and other questions. And so you keep opening these doors, and I feel like I have to continue to open them and ask questions. And I thank you for that. Continued success on both sides of the equation. I love being able to catch up with you and pick your brain and give advice to others, somewhat third person. But it's always great to see you, my friend, and we'll catch up with you soon. And when you figure out how to ship, we'll be at the front of the line for that stuff. That's going to be fantastic. Great to see you, my friend. We'll see you soon.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me, and good luck to you guys as well.
Santiago Lopez, head coach at El Farolito. And that was a great, I can't thank him enough for taking time out of his busy schedule to kind of give an education on El Farolito, because the successes that they've had on multiple fronts are as an amateur club. And so to be able to dive deeper into that and how difficult it is, and all the challenges that are associated with it, it's stuff that we don't necessarily get to see or understand a whole lot, because you're chasing after two championships simultaneously. You've got to have one group going one direction, one group going in the other, and all the travel that's associated with it and everything. And you're trying to represent the family business with the individuals that you bring in. So it's just a lot of different things that you have to keep in mind and continue the successes that you've had. So it was really interesting to catch up with Coach Lopez to find out more about El Farolito. So he's El Farolito kicks back in December, January. So we'll keep an eye on that as the NPSL season and Open Cup kicks back in and rolls from there. All right, let's get you into your news from the morning. And I guess we could start with Alexis Sanchez. Alexis Sanchez is now the new DP, apparently, for CF Montreal. And this happened yesterday, and it was reported at first by El Deportivo La Tercera. And 37 years young, Alexis Sanchez is joining as a DP. I'm keeping that silence there on purpose. There is no doubt about the history that Alexis Sanchez has. Put up a teaser for a video for a new number 10, 37 years old, stops at Barcelona, Arsenal, Manchester United, Inter Milan, and more. Last year he was at Sevilla, 4+2 in 28 appearances in just over 1,300 minutes. Chile's all-time leading national team scorer, national record for appearances at 168. And we've seen them do this before. Drogba, Nesta, Wanyama, Piatti, De Vaio. Now it is Alexis Sanchez, apparently, for CF Montreal. So we'll see what happens there. Once again, Xavier Gozo looks like it's going to be $15 million, new club record at RSL. And he should be joining them for their preseason training fairly quickly. Ben Jacobs, traditionally very, very busy man. Today is no different. West Brom confirming Robbie Zingula has joined from Strasbourg on a 3-year deal. Ishe Samuel-Smith has joined Notts County on a season-long loan from Chelsea. Inter in talks over Jed Spence. Deals in the region of 30 to 35 million euro, that with the combination with Alex Crook over at TalkSport. Sheffield United agreed to a deal with Manchester City to bring Calvin Phillips back on a straight loan. Danny Hall was the first to report that, the Sheffield United writer for the Sheffield Star. He was the first one there. Knee injury meant only he had 3 appearances for Sheffield United last season after joining on loan back in February. Newcastle showing an interest in Dortmund's chief scout, Sebastian Krug. He was the guy responsible, part of the guys responsible for getting Haaland and Bellingham to Dortmund. Spurs were another club with Krug on their radar as well. Brentford back in contact with West Ham over left back El Hadji Malik Diouf. There is a gulf in valuation. Rangers confirm Youssef Chermiti suffered an ACL injury in Sunday's loss to Hibs. No timetable on any kind of recovery or return. Chelsea have no plans to sell Mykhailo Mudryk this summer, only a loan if he departs. First team hasn't been entirely ruled out. Priority is to get him minutes. Multiple clubs have made approaches in the Premier League in Europe, including Strasbourg. That, to me, would be the one that makes the most sense. Jeffrey Afriyi is going to join Genk from Al-Qadsia. They signed him from Thoughts FC in the Ghanaian second division for under €1 million before loaning him out to Lugo and La Louvière. Sold him for €6 million 18 months later. Qadsia putting a heavy emphasis on player scouting and development, prepared to sell top talents, as they also proved when Eki Fernandez moved to Leverkusen. Southampton confirmed striker David Mubama is joined on a season-long loan from Manchester City. Nottingham Forest confirmed Ousmane Diomande has joined from Sporting on a 4+1 at €40 million, so divide by 5. That's the yearly part on the books. Chief Football Officer George Siriano says, quote, "We've been very clear on the profile of player we want to add to the squad. Excited to add Ousmane to the club. Powerful, commanding defender, arrives here with a winning mentality, shares the same ambition for success we have, and we're excited to see the impact he can have in a Forest shirt." Nobel Mendy's moved to Hull, now agreed. Players en route to formalize, going from Rayo Vallecano. Deal around £15 million. Miles Lewis-Skelly offered to multiple Premier League clubs, and that Arsenal could be open to selling, having signed Bruno Guimaraes. Manchester United among those clubs that are interested. Sevilla confirmed Robbie Ure has joined from Sirius on a 5-year deal. Formal approach last Wednesday. €9.15 million package. So 5 divided by 9, 1.8. So 1.83 a year. PSG agreed to a deal to sign Parma keeper Zion Suzuki for around €35 million. Suzuki has terms in place on a 5-year deal. Newcastle's defender Alex Murphy has joined Bundesliga B side FC Kaiserslautern on a season-long loan. Chelsea's £120 million valuation for Enzo Fernandez remains. Manchester City holding appreciation, including from Enzo Maresca, as reported on TalkSport over the weekend. It's not an easy deal. Chelsea haven't got any offers for Enzo in the last 60 days. They're focusing on the new season, locking in the first-team squad. Manchester City's active in the midfield market as advanced talks for Ayub Buwadi continue. Everton and Crystal Palace confirmed their swap deal. Dwight McNeil and Brennan Johnson, both players have signed 4-year deals. Fulham have confirmed Shea Charles, joining from Southampton, 26 plus £4 million. Southampton get a sell-on. Charles is signed for $30 million on a 6-year deal. Fenerbahce 6 hours ago, 5 o'clock in the morning, agree on a deal with Napoli to sign Romelu Lukaku for around €6 million plus add-ons. Napoli considering a bid for Gabriel Jesus, having made contact with Arsenal last week. Chelsea confirmed Philip Jurgensen has joined Strasbourg on a season-long loan. Spurs yesterday also confirmed Mickey Van de Ven signing a new 5-year deal to stay at Spurs. And how do we know this? Because he is smiling, looking off camera with a pen hovering over a contract, and he is in a Spurs golf shirt. So that's the reason that we know what's going on involving Mickey Van de Ven. So let's see if there's anything involving David Ornstein and any of his contacts and stuff. Crystal Palace in terms of processed and finalizing a deal to sign Anand Kalaili from Union Saint-Gilloise. 21-year-old right back underwent a medical and looking now to complete the deal on less than a £21 million fee on a 5+1. Also mentioned Shea Charles and Ousmane Diomande. So I believe we're caught up on the gossip, rumor, and the innuendo. Just a quick note from Herman Garcia Grova. It was where Atlanta United is concerned. There was word yesterday that Atlanta United was chasing more players, obviously, in South America. And the name that was floated about yesterday was Giuliano Galoppo from River. And apparently River and Atlanta United had reached a preliminary agreement for the transfer of the midfielder. According to Herman Garcia Grova, Tata Martino had been in touch, but the player did not want to consider the move to Major League Soccer as a market for continuing his future. So Giuliano Galoppo's missing out. So they were talking, they were close, they'd agreed, but Galoppo was like, not going to happen. So we'll keep an eye on everything when it comes to other transfers involving Atlanta United as they're at practice at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground this morning, and keeping an eye on that. All right, now getting into the other gossip, rumor, and innuendo before we get into juice boxes and schedules for today. Obviously, keep an eye on what's going on in Colombia, because matches in country have been postponed at least today and until further notice. So keep an eye out for when those what the clubs will be doing in country to help out with rescue and recovery efforts going forward. So Manchester United weighing up a summer move for Leipzig left back David Raum, according to Team Talk, potential alternative to Lewis Hall. £34 million release clause in his deal. United believe a deal could be negotiated down to 30 if he's keen on making the move. Arsenal monitoring Jules Kounda's situation at Barcelona, according to Diario Sport. Kounda, one of several senior players Barca would be willing to move out this summer if the right offer came along. Contracted until 2030, could be attractive for Arsenal. Champs will be without Jules Kounda for an extended period with the back injury he suffered at the World Cup, and Jurrien Timber missed the tournament with a groin injury. Manchester City and Lille closing in on Buwadi for around £85 million, according to The Guardian. Reportedly agreed to personal terms, and now negotiations are at an advanced stage. Maresca wants Buwadi to join the first-team squad immediately rather than return to Lille on loan. Move comes as City prepare for the possible departure of Rodri. Atletico de Madrid closing in on a deal to sign Christian Romero, according to Mateo Moreto. Minor details, according to Moreto, remain between the two clubs, making the Argentina international a priority this summer. Roma have held initial talks with reps of Arsenal's winger Gabriel Martinelli, according to the Daily Mirror, and entering the final year of his deal at Arsenal remains a distinct possibility this month. Galatasaray are also monitoring Martinelli, viewed as an attractive alternative to Rafa Leao. Ronald Araujo in with Liverpool from Barcelona for €55 million. We mentioned the swap deal. We mentioned Ousmane Diomande. Ferran Torres, Barcelona have rejected the first offer of around €40 million from PSG. Torres deal is supposed to expire in 27. Barca prepared to sanction an exit, holding out for a bigger fee. Endrick more likely to stay at Real Madrid than leave on loan, according to multiple sources. Spent the second half of the season at Lyon, has been in demand during this transfer window, wants to stay at Madrid. Wrexham set to sign Anthony Patterson. We talked about that one yesterday. That will eventually, when that happens, break their own transfer record for money spent on an incoming. Real Madrid interested in signing Martin Zubamendi, according to Football.London. Gunners have no interest in sanctioning the exit. Sizable offer could change matters. Barcelona and Spurs have made inquiries to Bayern Munich about Harry Kane. Supposed to sign, according to the friends at Team Talk, sign a new deal with the champs. Atletico de Madrid submitted a €35 million offer to Lille for Matias Fernando Pardo, attracting interest from Arsenal and Liverpool. It's from L'Equipe. Fabrizio Romano, Inter Milan, we talked about Jed Spence. Diario AS, Real Madrid want to see 3 players depart. Club has 26 first-team squad. Jose Mourinho wants to have 20, not counting 3 long-term injuries in Eder Militao, Rodrigo, and Ferland Mendy. Raul Asensio, Camavinga, and Mendy are the most likely exits. 3-letter paper, once again, we talked about it yesterday. West Ham could be swooping in to get Jamie Vardy, who is a free agent after leaving Cremonese last year in Serie A. Gazzetta, Arsenal forward Gabriel Jesus, open to joining Napoli this summer, who could yet make a bid. Fabrizio Romano, we mentioned Alexis Sanchez, Mateo Moreto. Porto have opened talks with AC Milan over a potential loan for Santi Jimenez, which would include a clause to make the transfer permanent at the end of the season. Foot Mercato, Palace, Villarreal have Nottingham Forest, all in the race to sign AC Milan midfielder Yusuf Fofana, valued around 18 to 20 million euro. Sky, Daniel Munoz from Crystal Palace, Everton's right back shortlist, also wanted by other European clubs, and Ben Jacobs has Wigan closing in on the loan deal of Chelsea youngster Reggie Walsh. So that is the gossip, rumor, and innuendo that we've known. Also on the board this morning, trying to see if there's anything else that we might have missed through the papers. Mentioned the swap deal, and Women's Champions League is going on. Nottingham Forest, apparently Evangelinas Marinakis wants to sue Crystal Palace because of a TIFO that was posted. And let me get the details on that. So hang on just a second. Let me see if it's in public purview or if I have to sit there and try and chase it. But yeah, Evangelinas Marinakis wants wants to sue. Hang on just a second. So, where is it? What paper was it? That was in that one. Okay, so hang on. All right, hang on. So let me do it this way. So I could spell Marinakos. So Marinakos Crystal Palace. So, yes, Evangelinas Marinakos. No. Okay, so, and this is from our buddy Ben Jacobs. Evangelinas Marinakos is suing Crystal Palace for a banner displayed by fans depicting him holding a gun to Morgan Gibbs White's head. Lawyers representing Marinakos have lodged a defamation suit in high court. Banner was displayed in the 1-1 draw between Palace and Forest last August. It had the caption, quote, Mr. Marinakos is not involved in blackmail, match fixing, drug trafficking, or corruption, end quote, consistently and firmly denied such allegations. Palace were fined £50,000 by the FA, who added the fact that Crystal Palace had a policy to prevent banners being smuggled into the stadium demonstrates that it was aware of the risk, end quote. So, lodged a defamation. CPFC Limited is listed as one of the two defendants, and obviously he's denied wrongdoing in relation to allegations, and we'll keep an eye on that as well. So, Evangelinas Marinakos is going to take Crystal Palace to court. Also, let's see, Derby County's takeover has fallen through in the championship, and it is time now to get into picks of the week, because it is here in the Kaiser Permanente studios an opportunity for us to continue the Clausura. And this is just the picks of the week and what happened last week, and I was awful, so this is all that matters. Getting into the matchups themselves. Australia Cup, it was Brisbane Roar and Sydney FC. Sydney FC favored at a plus 120. They won 4-2. Also at 10 o'clock in the morning in the Belgian Jupiler Pro, Waregem and Genk. Waregem won 2-1 at a plus 220, so the underdog at home got the win. Then it was at 11 o'clock in the Czech Chance Liga, Radek Kralove and Ostrava. Radek was favored at home at a plus 125. They would win it 2-1. Then at 11:30 in Romania in the Superliga, Petrol and Otelul. And it was Petrol that won at 1-0, favored at home at a plus 120. So they got the win there. Noon, it was in Finland, the Veikkausliiga, AC Oulu and HJK. HJK on the road was a road favorite. They won it 1-0. And then it was in Iceland, the Bestadade de Karla, KA Akureyri and Hafnarfjordur. God bless you all. Hafnarfjordur got the win as an underdog on the road at a plus 190, 1-0. 2:15 in the Extra Class, it was Jagiellonia Bialystok and Vidjev Luj. Once again, the road dog won at a plus 200. And then late night, it was 8 o'clock Eastern in the Costa Rica Primera, Herediano and Alajuelense. Alajuelense brought out the whooping stick. It was 3-0. So a lot of road favorites won this past week. So I was 1-7. And when was the only one I won was the Czech League. The tiebreaker, shots on target in the Sunday matches in the Liga Profesional de Football, the top flight in Argentina. I said 34, and the number was 38. A red card in the last game of the day boosted the numbers. I was on a decent path, but a red card had one team down to 10, and so the shot numbers boosted. So 38 shots on target in the Liga Profesional de Football, and that was your tiebreaker for the week. So it was Sydney FC, Waregem, Alajuelense, Radek Kralove, HJK, Hafnarfjordur, Vidjev Luj, and Petrolo. Those are your winners from the week, and the tiebreaker is 38. So that's the numbers that we are looking at there. And obviously, Clausura will continue later this week, and we'll let you know what those matchups are as everyone is chasing after the Clausura title as we go from here to the end of MLS's regular season. And the Campeón de Campeones will be Leagues Cup specific. Everything in Leagues Cup will be the Campeón de Campeones, and we will give you a high and hearty handshake for the final three in Campeón de Campeones. We'll take a break, and then we'll come back in on the sprint season and pick back up in 27 for your picks of the week. Clausura up and running here once again in 2026. Trying to see if there's anything else that I might have missed this morning. Once again, if you do not subscribe to Morning Espresso, brought to us by our friends at Kaiser Permanente, please do. You can go to soccerdownhere.net. You'll see a box you go to the read section, a box will pop down, put in your email address, and then you get to subscribe to Morning Espresso, which is like our morning newsletter. This is the morning show, and then everything else that we have working on down the line. So Libertadores and Sudamericana, once again, they are tonight. I guess we should check the juice boxes there just to kind of let you know what's going on. So Central and South America, maybe? No? Huh. Interesting. So you're not going to give me that one. All right. So it was a thought anyway. You would have thought. That's a good question, OG. If anybody's keeping score and picks of the week, I am not. But there are those who are, because you don't want me to. Trust me, you don't want me to be the one that is doing the math here. So once again, tonight on BN, you get Libertadores and Sudamericana kicking back in. And let me see. I'm just going to tell you what. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go Libertadores. Let me see if it's no matches can be displayed. No odds available from your selected. Yeah, sure. I doubt that very seriously, but we'll see what we got. All right. Let's see. So Libertadores and Sudamericana, because I know there's more than just the one matchup that is on tonight. So the fixture list tonight, 3 matches. It was supposed to be 3, but it obviously is now 2 with Deportivo Tolima and Independiente del Valle postponed. Fluminense is at 6 o'clock against Independiente Rivadavia, and Estudiantes is at 8:30 taking on Universidad Católica. You also have 3 matches on Wednesday, 2 matches on Thursday, and it kicks back in on the 18th. And so since we are now in the knockouts, that's where we are in the final 16 when it comes to Libertadores. And then Sudamericana, I guess I should have looked at the juice boxes for tonight, huh? Probably should have. So your fixtures tonight. Do we have fixtures tonight? I thought we did. Yeah, we have 2 tonight. Boca Juniors and Recoleta is at 6. Bolivar and Sao Paulo is at 8:30. And trying to see if there is anything looking at juice boxes in this matchup. That's about 6 hours away. Don't have anything posted there, and we'd have to go digging. So yes, tonight it is at Capital Federal, Estadio Tomás Adolfo Duco, when it comes to Recoleta and Boca Juniors. So that's, once again, matches at 6 in the Sudamericana and Libertadores, matches at 8:30, and you can catch them on Fanatis at fntz.co/soccer down here. I think that's it for today. So once again, we'll come back tomorrow. Dylan Butler and Kaylor Hodges in hour number 2. We'll go over everything. Oh, Leagues Cup. Duh. Leagues Cup matchups and what's going on in the Can Champs. So we'll get into juice boxes here in a sec. So your schedule, and you probably can catch up with the matchups in the Can Champs at One Soccer. Ottawa and Supra is on One Soccer at 7 o'clock at TD Place. Columbus and Pumas, 7:40. Charlotte and Pachuca at the Bank at 7:40. Cincinnati and Atlas is the 8 o'clock game on FS1 Unimas and Apple, so that's going to be a later start time at TQL, Team 6 and Team 32. Minnesota's at 8:40 taking on Atlante at Allianz. RSL is hosting Juarez at 9:40, and it is Team 30 hosting Team 23. Team 2 in Tigres at home at the Estadio Universitario is taking on Vancouver at 10:10. So that is that's going to be some craziness later tonight. But your Leagues Cup juice boxes, that's what I forgot to do. Charlotte favored at home tonight at -145. Your draws a +307. Pachuca's a +303. Crew is a -204 hosting Pumas at a +442. Draws a +326. Cincinnati a -278 hosting Atlas at a +592. Your draws a +400. Minnesota United -104 hosting Atlante at a +233 and draws a +262. RSL hosting Juarez at a -167, draws a +304. Juarez is a plus 362. Late Night Tigres hosting Vancouver at a minus 256. Vancouver, by the way, a plus 508, and your draw is a plus 383. Once again, only 2 MLS teams have been eliminated going into match day 3. Half of the teams in Liga MX have been eliminated heading into match day 3. So we'll have highlights and posts from those tomorrow as Leagues Cup kicks back in. That'll be in hour number 1. Dylan Butler and Kaylor Hodges discussing everything going on in their respective leagues and bailiwicks. That's going to be in hour number 2. So thanks to Santiago Lopez at El Farolito. Thanks to Kacey White. Thanks to Tony Economopolous, who has been on a bus for an hour and 20 minutes and heading to Jackson, Mississippi. And thanks to Ollie Howorth for our WAFCON update. Semifinals are tomorrow. 4 teams that have stunned us all to get to the Final Four in WAFCON. And a lot of talent watching can be done by teams coming online in the NWSL in 2028. We're just saying. That's another go-round of SDH AM. Thanks for dropping by, as you always do. Back at it again in less than 22 hours. And since it is the end of the show, that means I get to do this. Thanks to all of you guys for hanging out, as you always do. We'll be back at it again tomorrow on SDH AM. Mucho platiel, play it safe. We'll see you tomorrow.